And we'll get underway. So hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Bollinger, Managing Director of York County Community Foundation's Embracing Aging Initiative. And we are so excited to have you joining us because this is our very first virtual discussion with older adults in our community who are going to help us learn more about their aging experiences. They're going to share tips and insights and life lessons and some humor and maybe some challenges and everything in between to help us better understand what it's like to age in York County. You know, we are at York County Community Foundation. We're tired of people projecting shame on growing older, and that's why we've created our Disrupt Aging campaign, and as part of the campaign, hosting these events. So as I mentioned, for those of you who are just joining us, we are recording the session today. We hope to have, during our first 20 minutes, some question and answer between myself and our guests. And then we want to open it up to everyone to be able to weigh in. So we ask you to use the chat box. And if you can keep yourself muted when you're not speaking, that would be great. Otherwise, please unmute yourself and join in on the conversation. And I am so delighted for our guests today. So joining me is Glen Dunbar. He is an adjunct professor and an instructor on aging. He is a former health educator with the Peace Corp, and he has held positions in planning and training and policy making at the Department of Aging here in Pennsylvania. I first met Glen at an awards dinner a couple years ago. This award dinner highlighted individuals age 55 and older who are savvy and active and growing and enlightened older adults. And he was a recipient at one time of this award. And when he came up and talked to me, I knew immediately that Glen is a disruptor of aging. So welcome, Glen.
Glad to be here, Kathy. Thank you.
Wonderful. So let's just jump right in. I got to tell you, I've been hearing so much chatter around the name of the session, which is, I bet you were good looking when you were young. Is there a story behind that, Glen?
Well, sure. And this happened actually quite a while ago when I was in my 50s. I mean, I was relatively young then, but I was kind of chatting up this young lady, I don't know, 25 or thereabouts, and she was kind of giggling and whatnot. And then she says to me, I bet you were really good looking when you were young.
Oh my goodness.
And you know, that number one, that was a buzzkill.
Yeah.
But number two, I really learned a lesson from that because I didn't really have any business trying to chat up a woman, you know, half my age anyway. So that's obviously stuck with me. That was 20 some years ago that happened. So yeah, that definitely did happen. And I have a more recent story because there was this friend of ours that was staying with us, and she's 40-ish, and she was at a party that we had, and she was thinking about you know, who she met and whatnot, and she was asking me about this one guy, and I was trying to figure out who she was talking about, and I asked her to describe him, and she thought for a while, and she said, "Well, you know, all old white men kind of look alike, don't they?"
Oh my goodness.
That was a real zapper as well. And I mean, I know this lady very well, and she wasn't intentionally trying to make an ageist remark, but you know, that certainly came off that way to me. So that happens a lot.
Wow. Wow. You know, sometimes I don't think people realize what it is that they're saying, but that certainly doesn't make it okay. So let's talk more about biases. We know that everyone has them, and many people are prejudiced towards aging. So I understand, Glen, that one of the courses you teach is one-on-one perspectives of aging, and you discuss biases with your college students. Can you share some insights from those discussions?
I do, and that session was only 2 weeks ago, so it's fresh
Oh,
in my memory. Um, Whenever I ask my students what they think about older people, it starts off with only positive comments. You know, people only say how wonderful their grandmother is and things of that nature. But then when I start probing a bit more and I tell them, well, you know, it's okay for you to have some negative thoughts. You know, we want to explore those things. Everybody has biases, and that's just a human thing. And having a bias is really okay, but what isn't okay is not understanding that you have those
mhm.
biases because they sort of work in the back of your mind. They're sort of like a shadow in a dark room. You don't really know they're there, but once you realize that it's just a shadow on the wall, then you can talk about it realistically and you can begin to deal with it. Most of the time, our biases aren't based in reality. Usually, you know, for some of the people we're biased against, there's some truth, but it's not that way for everybody. It's we're stereotyping a population group, and so what we really need to do is make those kinds of distinctions and be aware of what's going on in the back of our mind.
Wow. That is so true. And I really like the analogy that you have about biases being like scary shadows in a poorly lit room. I do think that sometimes the subtleness and of words and the subconscious biases are the things that trip us up the most. And just like the women who were making those comments to you, they probably thought they were paying you a compliment and not really understanding the impact of their words. So tell me more about the college students. Are there some common biases that they have about older adults?
There are. I'll talk just about a few of them. One of the things I tried to focus on was older people in the workforce because I think that's
Mhm.
a tremendous issue. And I asked students if they've ever worked with older people. And one of the things that comes out pretty consistently from class to class is that older people are hard to work with and don't treat younger people as equals.
Hmm.
So that's one of the biases they have. And then another bias has to do with computers. And they say, well, you know, as people age, they don't want to learn new things, and they can't learn how to use the computer and things like that. And then a third one that comes out really consistently because a lot of my students are wait staff in restaurants. That's what college age people do. And they say, well, old people are lousy tippers. And, uh, you know, that's definitely something that they have in their mind. And I, I tell my students that, well, there's probably some truth to all of those things, but it's not true of all older people.
Mhm.
And you know, I really want to emphasize that this whole business about respecting older people, this whole business about being real about aging, respect needs to be a two-way street.
Mhm.
And you know, I am sure that there are lots of situations where older workers don't treat coworkers as equals.
Mhm.
Um, I I myself have had lots of conversations with people my age where they go on at length about how older people today or younger people today just don't have a good work ethic, and how younger people today spend all the time on the computer and on the telephone, and they have all these tattoos, and they have all this, ridiculous hair and things like that. Well, you know, that's that's really not right either. That is being disrespectful of younger people. So if you want to be respected by younger people, you have to get a hold of yourself and know your own biases that way. And then a bit about the computers. Well, as people age, doggone it, this computer thing seems pretty hard, even for me. I mean, I've worked really hard at it, but I know lots of my friends are not as good with computers as I am, and they don't want to try to learn. And we live in a day and age where if you can't work a computer, you're just going to be left behind, and that's all there is to it. So, older people need to jump on top of that. And then the business about older people not tipping well. I think that's probably true. I've
Probably
I,
true for some,
I,
right?
I'm occasionally tempted not to leave such a good tip, although my wife usually straightens me out with that. So it's a
Well,
two-way street. That's the
it,
point.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree it is. And, making blanket assumptions about any group, whether it's based on age or any difference, is not okay. And I always find that if you put the word some in front of what you're saying, that is a good way to try to keep from having biased or ageist language in terms of when you're talking about age. And I just really think it's important to be respectful across all differences. I just think that's really important for us. Hey, Glenn, I want to ask you about something, because when we were talking about this program, you said to me that you view aging as weird. I want to know more about that. Why do you think aging is weird?
Well, I've been in the aging field for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
what you read in the textbooks doesn't exactly match up with real life. And now that I'm 70 plus, I can talk about aging from a real life perspective. And I do find it to be a mixed bag of things. I mean, I like senior citizen discounts. Okay, I go out and I always tell people I'm a senior. I want my discount, so that's a good thing.
Lots of people like discounts, right?
Yeah, and I really enjoy not having bad hair days. Okay, I don't have to do anything with my hair anymore. That's a joy. I just get up and run
And
a
go, huh?
brush, and yeah, good to go. So that's a good thing. Now, some of the things I don't like about aging, I will wake up in the morning sometimes, and I'll see a long hair of the side of my nose. I mean, talk about weird. I mean, that is a very weird thing, and it just like happens overnight. I don't have hair on top of my head, but this doggone nose is a good thing. It'll come out of the nose and it'll come out of the ears. I mean, that is a weird kind of deal. And what's something else that was weird? I was my wife and I were up in New York City. This was a couple years ago, and we were looking in the windows in the stores,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some people behind us, and there's a reflection from the window. And I looked up and I jumped back, and because I saw, I thought I saw my dad all reflected in the window. And my dad had been dead like, 10 years or so. So that was a very weird thing. And I know other older people have had those kinds of experiences as well. Um, and some things I don't like. I don't like it. Like, I'll go into the hardware store, and these people will always greet me with, "Hi, young man. How can I help you,
Mm.
young man?" I mean, why do they say that kind of stuff? I know I'm not young, okay? I don't expect them to call me old man, but they don't have to call me young man. So, that's something I don't like. And I don't really care for when I talk to people and they ask me how old I am, and they I tell them and they say, "Oh, you look good for your age."
Oh,
What's that supposed to mean?
yeah.
I, they just need to learn how to zip their lip a little. And and then last year I had an experience that I'm still processing, because I don't know if I like it or don't like it. But I had my hands full, and I was going toward a door, and this little girl, I mean, she was probably, I don't know, somewhere between 10 or 12 years of age, and she comes running up and she opens the door for me. And, should I be happy about that? That this young person is being helpful and respectful? Or should I be a little offended that she saw me as this doddering old person? I remember when I was a Boy Scout how we were supposed to help old ladies across the street and that sort of thing. So that's a very mixed bag of experiences for me. Uh,
Wow.
and as an older person, I do want to feel respected, and I do feel like I should have responsibilities and things to do, a purpose in life, not
Hmm.
sit back and let other people take care of me. Yeah.
Yeah, having a sense of purpose, Glenn, is really, really important. And, I want to be mindful of our time and allow for some questions from the people joining us today. So I want to make certain, though, that I know you have some tips and some key messages that you want to share with us about aging. Can you share those, and then we'll open it up for some questions and comments from people joining us?
All right, just real quickly, things I tell my students, drum into their heads. Aging is normal, healthy part of life. It's not to
Hmm.
be avoided or cured. Aging is not so much about loss as it is about making transitions. We make transitions throughout our life, and every transition is necessary. And the meaning of the aging experience is not just about the body. There is more to me than just my body and my wrinkles and things of that nature. There is a lot more to it. Fourth point I try to drill into their heads is it is possible to have a good, happy quality of life in old age. And then there's more to a person than just your age. See the person, don't just see the age. I have this thing about languages. And in the Roman languages, the Spanish languages, they say a person has X number of years. It's not a person is a number of years. So a person has,
Mm.
but is not the years, is not a number. So that's kind of it real quickly.
Wow, those are lots of valuable tips. And I want to share with everybody, we're going to be putting these on our website. And again, the recording will also be on the website. So if you want to make note of those or receive them in a written form, they will be available to everyone. But now I'd like to ask you if anyone has some questions for Glenn and the messages he has shared, or maybe you have an aging experience that was similar or different, or just something that you'd like to add to this morning's conversation.
I don't know, I could add something.
Okay.
I teach as well at the college level, and I had some interesting experience with some 40-year-olds who had labeled the older people as not being worthwhile because they don't know computers well enough, but they didn't like the millennials either. You know,
Hmm.
they thought they didn't have enough maturity. So, and I find this even between the younger generations that they sometimes label each other. So I think
Wow.
each type of generation sometimes labels each other for what they think they have better going for them. I don't know if it's a one-upmism or what, but I've just found that interesting in my experience this past year.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, Patricia. Any other thoughts, comments?
Hi, Glenn. This is Deb Gogniat.
Hi, Deb.
How are you? I'm turning a video on it. Anyway, so it's good to see you. I don't know if you can see me, but so it's interesting. Now that I'm 65, I've really liked it. And I think it's just a marvelous perspective. And I was thinking about other countries, and I came in late. I apologize for that. But did you talk about other countries where age is revered? And I know it's cultural, but how do they sustain that in the era of social media and whatnot? Do we know anything about that?
I think we do, and I do talk about Japan. I really like Japan and the way they approach aging. Not so much because the elderly are still revered like in the past, but they really are trying to build a nation where people, most people will live to be 100. And they take it very seriously, and they have a national plan for creating age-friendly communities, and they have a national long-term care health insurance program. So we do know that about other countries. I think the being revered thing has fallen off globally because of the internet and because people don't need to remember things so much anymore. It doesn't have to be stored in the brain, you know, so older people have lost some value on that account. They used to be the keepers of all the knowledge, but that's been replaced globally by computers.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Great question, Deb.
Well, I
Thank
just
you.
realized why I had put black tape on my camera, which is why you can't see me. It shows I'm slipping. I don't know if you got that.
I love it. There you are. Good to see you, Deb.
Yeah.
That's funny. Any other questions for Glenn or anyone want to add into the conversation this morning? Well, I want to let everybody know that Glenn has a blog, and I encourage everyone to visit his blog and sign up for it. It is reflections-on-aging.com. So again, reflections-on-aging.com, and you can sign up to receive his blogs. And I think as you heard today, he has a great perspective and aging, and I think that you will find his blogs very enjoyable and thought-provoking as well. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. As I mentioned, this is our first session. We will be hosting our second virtual session, actually with Patricia Miller, who's joining us today. Excuse me. Her session is on Friday, October 2nd at 10 o'clock. And Patricia is what I call a human resource extraordinaire. And her session is titled Give Ageism the Boot. It starts with attitude. And she believes that older adults are the resilient generation, and that older adults are stronger than we think, wiser than we know, and more adaptable than we imagine. So she's going to provide some tips to help us build those traits. I'd like to encourage everyone to visit our new website, www.embracingaging.org, to learn about ways you can become a disruptor of aging. As we know, this ageism thing is out there. It's an invisible barrier. It does exist. And it's going to require all of us to say enough is enough and to work together to address it. So there are 4 action items that you can implement on our website to help become disruptors of aging. And I did see one chat come in. I want to get that before we close. Can you put that blog in the chat? I will do that. Let me type that right now. So it's reflections on aging.com.
There's a hyphen after the on too.
Yes, I got that.
Okay.
Hyphen reflections on aging.com. I just sent it in the chat so everyone can get it. Thanks, Joan. My first time doing this, I got to get up on making certain I put that stuff in. So again, everybody, thank you. Enjoy this absolutely gorgeous day. Join us in becoming disruptors of aging, and let's make York County not only a great place to grow up, but to grow older. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Have a good day.